Hello and welcome to this episode of the RedeeM podcast. The RedeeM podcast, we help you reverse your story. We help you integrate tragedy, redeem heartache, and flourish in life. That is our purpose and our mission, hence why it is called RedeeM, because it is also my last name, Meter, backwards, and God reverses your story by flipping evil on its head. I'm continuing the series on flourishing, and I'm continuing the series about your spiritual gifting, specifically that there are 7 spirits of God, and anytime there are a list of 7, or at least most times there are a list of 7 things as it relates to God, it is uncanny how closely they overlap with each other with the gifts. So we are now on day 6, which is the ruler's day, or the day that God creates humans, and that is the ruler's day, the day 6. And we're going to talk a bit about this 6th spirit of God, the ruler spirit, or the leadership spirit. So day 6, I'm going to start with Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw that everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. And then in Genesis chapter 2, it actually goes into a little bit more of the details of making man and woman, which I think is really interesting, because if you look at the text, he starts out in kind of like a general statement about God creating man in his image, and he creates male and female in his image. But then you have this movement in chapter 2, where he goes into the specifics of the creation of man and woman. And that's important also for understanding that part of the ruler is also understanding the dynamic between male and female, and specifically husband and wife. But first I want to talk about the first part of the text, which is chapter 1. So the very interesting thing about this particular part of the Spirit is because of how much it is like God's image as a leader and as a follower, as someone who is both strong and protective, but also weak and vulnerable and beautiful. So the two most diverse groups, if you want to call them groups, is men and women. Those are like, you're not going to find anything more different than these two groups. And they are almost polar opposites. Again, you can get into the psychology and you can look at the bell curve, that there are some females who have more masculine qualities and some males who have more feminine qualities. And that's fine. But there is still a biological significant difference. And within that, we were meant to be with one another in that diverse relationship. And that is his image and his likeness. And then here's the part for the ruler. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So in particular, there's this idea of being a leader, subduing the creation, but not like for its good, not in a destructive way. And also, leaders in particular are about growth. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish, over all of creation. So what you will find about rulers is, as leaders, they are seeking to build and grow things and multiply it. They are seeking to master something. And then we come over to Revelation chapter 3, and we look at the church in Philadelphia. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, the words of the Holy One, the true One, who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one opens. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it. And I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Now I find this particular letter to the church in Philadelphia interesting, because it's one of the few that doesn't have a severe consequence if they don't turn from their way. Whatever the negative piece of that particular gift is, I find it interesting that it's not like it's not as harsh as some of the other ones. It just says It just says, hold fast what you have so that no one may seize your crown. Like that's like their negative side is. Hold fast what you have so that no one may seize your crown. It's almost like they let go. And I would say that that's true. They let go because for whatever reason, their burden as a leader, as a ruler, is more than some of the other gifts. And I think that this is true about the relationship of Jesus having to carry his burden of leadership to redeem humanity, and how he brought the Israelites out of the land of slavery, and how Jesus brought those who believe in him out of the land of slavery to sin and wickedness and Satan and unrighteousness. And there are some very negative qualities about, there are some wounded qualities about the ruler that are a lot more hurtful to people, as we're seeing in our present day and age, where the next gift, the final gift, the seventh gift, the mercy gift, they're looking back on the rulers, the leaders, and what the abusive ones did, and they don't like it. And so they're actually kind of disconnecting from the ruler and the goodness that the ruler brought, and they're pendulum swinging too far into the mercy season, which isn't a bad thing. There's a good thing to be had with the mercy season, but it needs to be linked to what is good about the ruler season. The whole other conversation that I just kind of dipped my toe into that may not make sense, which will probably be a different episode. I think my brain is not firing on all cylinders right now, which I'm okay with, but I do have a vague inkling that I may not be doing the best job explaining this, and it may partially be that I am a ruler. My primary gifting is a ruler, and I think I have two other supporting gifts, which is the prophet and the mercy. So the mercy is very sensitive. Some rulers aren't. And then you have the prophet, who's extremely passionate, kind of wears his heart on his sleeve, but can be insensitive sometimes. Then you pair that with a dominant ruler trait, who is trying to build and grow things and multiply. It gets interesting having all of that combination together. But I think but back to Revelation, me personally, I believe that the reason that it says, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. One of the very frustrating things for a ruler is to try to build something and it fail, i.e. the door gets shut. And because they are leaders, because I'm also a leader, we tend to stand out. And we tend to attract more attention, which also means we tend to attract more shame as well. And that's the hard part, that when we have had so many doors shut in our faces, when we want to bring goodness to the world, but people say that what we're trying to bring is not good, that's hard. That's hard. And so rulers in particular will attract synagogues of Satan who say that they are Jews or believers, but are not. They lie. And so there's this interesting dynamic with a ruler and needing honor. And then you have people who say they are believers but tear you down and dishonor you. And Jesus says, "Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you." And that's very key for a ruler, because a ruler is meant to do things in building. They are extremely good time managers, and they are extremely good at getting tasks done. They're not so great at relationships. They can be very good at relationships, but they will often thrive more by getting stuff done. And depending on how wounded they are, they will actually prefer to do tasks rather than delegating to people, and rather learning how to grow as a leader does in delegation. They will try to control it all themselves. And that's one of the woundings of the ruler season. In my culture right now, in the United States, there's terms that has more of a negative connotations about the United States, and that's imperialism and capitalism. And they're not bad. They are very, very good things. The wounded part of the ruler season has brought about this hyper-vigilant pursuit of more efficiency, more money, more profit at the exhaustion of people, at the burnout and the expense of relationships. And that's the wounded side. So what leaders really need to experience is that they are loved deeply, and that they are honored above their enemies and those who hate them. And in that, the hardest part for the leader is patient endurance. And because they are a leader, they have a heavier burden than many of the other gifts. They have a more difficult burden. And I think that that's why Jesus says that I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world to try those who dwell on the earth, because of what they have had to endure as a leader. The hardship to try and build and grow something is so much greater. But just because a leader is obvious and there's a bit more honor for a leader, that does not mean that the other gifts are less than, or that they are dispensable. Paul goes on to say that actually the lesser gifts and the more modest ones, we treat them with greater tenderness and dignity, and we treat them with even more honor. And that is what a ruler is called to do, not to prop themselves up and show how successful they are, but to actually serve others, to serve those who would help them build whatever piece of the kingdom of God here on earth they are called to build. And also within the ruler gifting, you will also see a love story, because a ruler or a king needs a queen. A prince needs a princess. And it's also in the ruler gift where you find Jesus coming for his bride, the church. And so within the ruler, you also have the story of romance, but can also turn bitter in divorce. So one of the struggles for the rulers is struggling with betrayal, or struggling with very, very close, intimate relationships who they then pass away. And it's like they become widowed or become a widower. So kings and queens, they're the one that they attach to and bond with, and they're playing out that romantic narrative. They can experience deep amounts of shame and trauma if they are betrayed, or if that person literally dies and is no longer around, or if the relationship ends for whatever reason. And that's a story that they need to explore, because it is key that they learn how to love well, even after being betrayed. They need to go through that heartache and that process of healing. Even if they have become a widow or a widower, they need to learn how to open their heart back up and still allow love to come and go inside of them. But there's also a carnal side of that, and that is that the king or queen can gather for themselves as many lovers as they want. And that is part of what, if you look at this idea of seasons, if you look at that, there was a period of a seasonal growth of the ruler season within the United States, where we were becoming a ruler. We were growing and expanding. Well, now we're moving into the mercy season, and the mercy season is looking back at how kings and queens have used and abused lovers. Not to actually dedicate themselves wholeheartedly for life, but to use multiple partners, to use all kinds of different schemes to fulfill their depravity. Within that, now the mercy season is actually looking at, and they're saying, we don't want lovers. A woman is fine by herself. She doesn't need a man. And a man is fine by himself. He doesn't need a woman. And they also look back and see the abuses that men have used their power, their position to abuse the weaker, more beautiful, and vulnerable. And this new generation in the mercy season is looking back at the ruler season and judging it. But they're also pendulum swinging too far. You do need a spouse. You need someone to come alongside of you and complete the image of God, that which is lacking, which is really, really hard, because it means that you're going to have to grow, because they're going to point out all of your flaws, and it's going to feel like suffering, and it's going to be tempting to go back to, why put up with all this? I'd rather not. I'd rather have a good, happy life where I don't have to deal with someone else's bullcrap. And it's true. You can go that route. But in my opinion, and from what I have seen in my own life and my own marriage, you do not grow into a more mature version of yourself without the pain that a lover will bring into your life. They will bring joy and goodness, and they will also bring pain and sorrow and sadness, because being in a relationship with human beings is hard and difficult, because we're all broken, we're all empty, and we're all trying to fill our emptiness through our own ends of idolatry, lust, and anger, envy, and murder from our hearts. So we have all kinds of ways in which we do this to people to try and fill our emptiness, which is why the gospel is so amazing, because of how it redeems us and reverses our story when we deserved punishment for what we have done. I'll save that for later. So here's some qualities for the ruler. The ruler is the principle of freedom. So rulers are really called by God to move people from slavery to freedom. And what's sad is some of the more wounded rulers can actually create more slavery. Slavery to, especially in business, slavery to profit and loss sheets. slavery to efficiency. Not that those things are bad. Those are good things, but it can go to the extreme, and it can become too rigid. And if it becomes too rigid, it can't change and grow and bring in new information, new creativity to multiply and grow. Instead, the system will become extremely rigid and unchanging, and then when that happens, if there is no reversal, or they allow energy to come in to then become fruitful and multiply, it will become stagnant, and then it will begin to die slowly over time. And people won't see it happening until 5-10 years down the road, and it's too late. So here's some things about the ruler. Thrives under pressure and puts the people around him under the same pressure. And that can be motivationally good, or it can be abusive. And I like that. And here's part of the reason why rulers in particular can thrive under pressure. God did like double the work on day 6. And in day 6 in particular of creation, there's this nuance in which you get a little bit more of the detail of the creation of Adam and Eve. And so what is interesting about the ruler is that they're gifted to get things done quickly, and they're gifted to get more done than most other people in productivity. And they can get stuck on that. They can get stuck on the efficiency, they can get stuck on the productivity, and not embrace the reality that they need the next gift, which is the mercy gift, which is rest, where God rests on the 7th day. That we're doing all this work, but we need to rest. Rulers have a really hard time resting, especially the more wounded they are, because if they rest, then they will actually get in touch with all of the pain and brokenness that comes up inside of them, and they don't like that, so they will fill it all with stuff to do. I'm not saying that that is exclusive to the ruler, because you'll see it pop up with other gifts, but it is a hallmark of dominant ruler giftings. The ruler is skilled at time management. They get the job done. They can be loose on ethics when the ends justify the means. Now, this is also true. When they want the kingdom of God built, when they want the project or the business or the thing, whatever it is, built, they will cut corners and tell everyone else to turn a blind eye. And that's the wounded part. The more healed they are, the more they will integrate all the virtues and character. One of the really interesting things about the rulers is that they can use imperfect people and draw the best out of them without allowing their brokenness to damage the goal of a project or group, and that's the more healed side. They take a vision and put together an effective plan. They aren't necessarily the visionary, but they are an implementer. And they are empire builders. They want to go big or go home. They want to make everything better. They want to exploit all the opportunities. So bigger, better, and opportunities, those are all words. Efficiency also is one of their words. Productivity is one of their words. They focus on immediate tasks. They can be task-oriented and fall short in nurturing, shepherding, and correcting what is spiritually wrong. They can be willing to be vindicated by God and not man. Sometimes you'll see the more wounded the ruler, the more that they look for the praise of man or the justification of man, that, someone comes along and says, yes, you're a good leader. Whereas they can, the more healed they are, they can tolerate people saying you're a horrible leader, but knowing that they stand vindicated before God. And because of that, the more healed they are, they can withstand strong opposition. They can take pretty good conflict. They can withstand hard conflict. But these are their major weaknesses. The more unhealed they are, they can be extremely insensitive. they won't have feelings and they won't understand why you have feelings. You just need to get the goal done. You just need to get the job done and you need to get the task done. Why didn't you? I don't understand. Why can't you do this? And it's because the other gifts are not the ruler. If we were all rulers, we would not, it would be a crazy world. And the ruler needs to understand that he needs to have, or she needs to have, more sensitivity towards the other giftings, and that everyone is in a growth process, including the ruler. And they need to be aware of their blind spots. Since they are goal-oriented, they may fail to nurture those around them and may apply pressure without moderation. They will exhaust the people around them that they lead if they're not careful. And because of this, rulers also don't like negative feedback. The more wounded they are, they don't like negative feedback. The more mature they are and the more secure they are, the more that they can receive hard feedback and then evaluate whether or not they can put a weight on the feedback to figure out whether or not it's truly good or not. And I think that this comes from the idea of a ruler sifting the chaff from the wheat, figuring out what is good about the feedback and what is not good about the feedback. They struggle with the end justifying the means, so many times they will overlook ethics and integrity to get what they want. And because of that, they will compromise, settling for their own agenda instead of God's. And they will always look for more things to do instead of slowing down to just be with people in relationship. So the mature ruler has high moral integrity, shares authority and leadership with others. They are life-giving and move people from slavery to freedom, from systems that keep people oppressed and suppressed, to moving them into systems that allow them to flourish and multiply. They don't push people beyond their limits so that they don't break them. They are able to nurture while drawing the best out of them and calling them to become something more. The immature, the insecure, or the more wounded ruler leads or governs by control or micromanage and applies constant pressure at work, home, and ministry, can't receive correction. They have to always be right. They're too busy with multiple interests, and they can be too self-reliant. And the call to propagate the kingdom of God can become greater than the greatest commandment, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And there you go. Love versus tasks. They need to be in the proper order. So their battlefield is exploitation. This is the whole subject of abuse that I talked about earlier. They can use a situation or person in an unfair or selfish way. They can overwork and underpay people. Their legitimacy lies, I am successful when I have authority over others. The truth is that a leader can lead even when they are not in a leadership position. They can influence those around them, below them, and above them. They do not have to be in a leadership position. The birthright of the ruler is to go beyond obedience and honor God, live in freedom and holiness. Well, that is it for this episode of the RedeeM podcast. I hope you learned something about the ruler. And if you are a ruler and you resonate with these things, I want to work with you. Reach out to me through redeemllc.com or give me a phone call and we'll discuss a pathway for you to become more of who you are meant to be by looking at how your story can be reversed, how you need to integrate tragedy, redeem heartache, so that you can move into truly flourishing and owning your gift. Thanks for listening to this episode. See you later.